Are you looking for something fun to do here in Sanford, Florida? It seems like every area has things that you must see from a local's perspective, but sometimes these things are hard to find if you're new to the area. For that matter, I often hear cool things to do right under my nose and then wonder how I've ever missed it when I've been around this area for so many years. Being a suburb to Orlando, Sanford isn't somewhere that you think of as a destination location, and I get that. But it doesn't mean that there isn't plenty to do right here without making that trip down I-4 to Orlando. As such, I'm going to be addressing the top 5 things you must do if you're living here in Sanford, Florida. At the end, I'm going to have a couple bonus ideas that you might also consider, so be sure to stick around for those too. I'm Chuck Shaver of the Shaver Group with Keller Williams Heritage Realty, and I've been a licensed realtor here in Central Florida for many years, and I've spent a ton of time here, and I own a home here in Sanford too. It's for those reasons that I've picked up on a few things in Sanford that you gotta check out if you haven't done so already. Now, this channel provides all sorts of videos on what it's like to eat, sleep, live, or whatever here in Central Florida. If that's the information that you want, make sure you hit that little subscribe button and click that little bell so that you're notified every time I do a new video just like this. Of course, if you're thinking about moving to Central Florida, you can always just pick up the phone and call me directly. Now let's get on to those 5 things you must do in Sanford, Florida. First, you gotta visit downtown Sanford and the Riverwalk. Downtown Sanford is an amazing little town, and although it hasn't always been a destination, it really has become so in the last 10 or 20 years. I regularly come to downtown Sanford for one of their amazing restaurants or breweries. Hollerbox has the best German food that I know of anywhere, and the breweries, which have plenty of local craft beers, have great food too. My wife and I come down here regularly, and afterwards we're usually making a quick stop for some ice cream and then walk down to the Riverwalk on the edge of Lake Monroe. Sometimes we're just trying to walk off some of that, that goodness. If you're not up for that much walking, you could always just jump on the free downtown trolley service that runs over to the Sunrail station. The Sunrail is a really good way to get around and to get down past Orlando or Point Siena or even up into the West Volusia area. Another option is to rent a golf cart and cruise around the downtown area. I'll include a couple links below that may help if you're coming this way. The Riverwalk has a paved multi-use trail that's something like 5 miles long. It goes from the city parks that are really nice down past some businesses and a great little coffee shop up along the edge of town on 1792. They put in some roundabouts and slowed the speed limit down to about 35, so it's kind of got this homey little feel that's surprising for a town of this size with this much history. I've cycled along here too, and all around Lake Monroe, and this trail connects up to the Florida Coast to Coast Trail. If you live here in the Sanford area, you're probably already aware that Sanford has a ton of local events. There's the Sanford Porch Fest, which is a charity-based musical event where these musicians play all around on porches, and they donate their time. They've got food vendors and auctions, and it's really cool. One fun event that I never even heard about was the couch races here in downtown. Someone just told me about that the other day, and it sounds like a hoot. We finally caught the air show at the airport the other day, and that was really awesome. We set up in a parking lot just outside the airport and caught the whole thing for free. It was a great day. The Pints and Paws Craft Beer Festival is another charity event in the spring when everyone brings out their dogs, and they've got tents and food trucks all around, so it's a great event. At Christmas, Sanford has their holiday tour of homes when they set up just for the Christmas lights in the historic district. And the Parade of Lights is a Christmas parade that's really cool too. There's the food truck fiesta and all sorts of good events, most of which are right here in downtown Sanford. Now, I've surely only touched the surface here. The idea isn't to cover all of them. But if you're in the area, it's worth a quick Google search to see what's going on down here if you've got some time and you want to get out to enjoy life just a bit. The next thing is the dinner cruise. Now, I used to think that the dinner cruise was just an event for old blue-haired people. But then I went there in my early 20s and learned that it was actually pretty cool. Back then it was called the River Ship Romance, but today they've rebranded it as the Barbara Lee, and it sits on the marina on Lake Monroe, just a short walk from downtown. This paddle boat tour has lunch, brunch, and dinner, and I believe they've got a dance tour too, if that's your thing. The food's pretty good here, and I believe the tours last a couple hours. We've been on it a couple times now, both times with small groups. It's a pretty chilled out option to look for gators or birds or whatever out there on the St. Johns River. The next one is to get outside. When I talk to people about Sanford, it's rare that someone mentions getting outside, except for maybe an event here in Sanford. It's too bad too, because Sanford has a couple of really great resources that I think are underrated. First, out on the west side of Sanford is the Wekiva River. Now, the Wekiva has some crystal clear waters that are great for paddling. It's a great place to put in a canoe or kayak right there at Katie's Landing. They got public bathrooms in there too. In the summer, you better get there early as it can get busy on the water. I personally love to be there early before anyone else and just watch the wildlife first thing before everybody else gets there and starts making all kinds of noise. If you don't own a kayak or a canoe, you can also head over to the Wekiva River in a Popka at King's Landing and rent one. It's about $50 for a 4-hour run, and it's all downstream. They have a shuttle that'll pick you up and take you back where you started, which helps to avoid that upstream paddle. Personally, I think it's better paddling up near 46, but if you don't have a canoe or a kayak, then there are other options here in Central Florida where you can rent one. If you aren't that adventurous, you can also take a guided tour on the Wekiva. Now, I personally haven't done that, but I imagine that a guide would be a good way to see it too. Paddling or fishing is a great, inexpensive, healthy, and a fun way to spend a day here in the Sanford area. If hiking is your thing, there's the Black Bear Wilderness area, also out west off of Highway 46. This little loop is a little over 7 miles long, and I believe it's a pretty easy hike. If you don't want that much, you can do a shorter version about a mile out and a mile back. Now, on this hike, I like to go counterclockwise on this trail as it allows me to get better views of the river towards the end of the hike. Now, take care after rains or in the early mornings as it can be pretty slick. I like this trail as an option also in the heat of the day, like in the summer, because it's pretty well shaded. There's a nice hammock. We're always seeing gators, turtles, water birds, and there's plenty of bears in the area too, although we don't hardly ever see them. The Spring Hammock Preserve is another great little hike, but it's down in Longwood on Lake Jessup, and that lake is loaded with gators. Of course, there's the Riverwalk that I spoke of earlier, or the Coast to Coast Trail, if you're cycling, or if you're just up for walking 100 miles. Next is the Sanford Zoo. Now, I used to think that the zoo was just for kids, but it's pretty cool as an adult too. The Sanford Zoo is a great zoo, and it's a fun place to come just to check things out on the fly. An annual pass will set you back about $70, but they're always doing special events over there, and although I don't see a lot of them, I hear they're really pretty good. Now, I could be wrong, but I don't think there are any other good zoos right here in this area. They've also got a zip line and a great splash pad, which is a dual feature benefit, taking the kids there in the heat of the summer. While I believe that these 5 things are the best things you got to do here in Sanford, there are several others that I believe are worth an honorable mention. If you're into the performing arts, I hear that the Wayne Dench Performing Arts Center is really nice. Now, I've never been there, and that's why I only give it an honorable mention. Speaking of arts, there's the gallery on First, and Hollerbox even has a gallery by their restaurant, and there are a few other little art shops around town too. Now, I suspect that I'm not giving art its due, but it's just not something that I'm personally into. Sanford is an old town, and it has a rich history that you'll be able to see pretty quickly if you're looking out for it. There's the Museum of Seminole County History off 1792 down south, but throughout the area you can see the historical markers that give you a good bit of insight into the early days of the Native American settlements here in Sanford, as well as a transportation hub that made Sanford what it is today. If you are familiar with Sanford, please take just a second and share some other ideas of what you like to do here in Sanford, as I'm sure there are many other great insights out there. Again, this is not a comprehensive list, so your insight is really important. Again, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.